Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text number 8. Anyone here speaks English? Yes? Yes, great.
Sorry, what was the sloka?
8, text 8.
138, huh?
138, yes. There's no board here today, huh?
I mean, there's no verse written today.
Okay.
There's a verse that was written from yesterday and one from last week, which means somebody forgot to write.
Okay. Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Deva Rishitvam Upetya Saha
Deva Rishitvam Upetya
Tantram Sattvatam Achashta
Tantram Sattvatam Panchasta
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Deva Rishitvam Upetya Saha
Deva Rishitvam Upetya
Tantram Sattvatam Achashta
Tantram Sattvatam Panchasta
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Deva Rishitvam Upetya Saha
Deva Rishitvam Upetya
Tantram Sattvatam Achashta
Tantram Sattvatam Panchasta
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha
Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai
Deva Rishitvam Upetya
Deva Rishitvam Upetya
Tantram Sattvatam Panchasta Naishkaryam Karmana Ayataha
Tritiyam Rishi Sargam Vai Deva Rishitvam Upetya Saha Tatram Sattvatam Achashta Naishkarmyam Karmanam Yataha. Pujis? Anyone? No? Tritiyam. The third one.
The third one.
Rishi Sargam.
Rishi Sargam.
The millennium of the Rishis.
The millennium of the Rishis.
Why? Certainly.
Certainly.
Deva Rishitvam.
Deva Rishitvam.
Incarnation of the Rishis.
Incarnation of Rishis.
Amongst the demigods.
Amongst the gods.
Opetya. Having accepted. Saha. He. Tantram. Exposition of the Vedas.
Exposition of the Vedas.
Sattvatam, which is especially meant for devotional service. Achashta, collected. Naishkarmyam, non-fruitive. Karmanam, of work. Yataha, from which. Translation. In the millennium of the Rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Deva Rishi Narada, who is a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action. Purport. The great Rishi Narada, who is an empowered incarnation of the personality of Godhead, propagates devotional service all over the universe. All great devotees of the Lord all over the universe and in different planets and species of life are his disciples. Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is also one of his disciples. Narada is the author of Narada Pancharatra, which is the exposition of the Vedas, particularly for the devotional service of the Lord. This Narada Pancharatra trains the karmis, or the fruitive workers, to achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive work. The conditioned souls are mostly attracted by fruitive work because they want to enjoy life by the sweat of their own brows. The whole universe is full of fruitive workers in all species of life. The fruitive works include all kinds of economic development plans. But the law of nature provides that every action has its resultant reaction, and the performer of the work is bound up by such reactions, good or bad. The reaction of good work is comparative material prosperity, whereas the reaction of bad work is comparative material distress. But material conditions, either in so-called happiness or in so-called distress, are all meant ultimately for distress only. Foolish materialists have no information of how to obtain eternal happiness in the unconditional state. Sri Narada informs these foolish fruitive workers how to realize the reality of happiness. He gives direction to the diseased man of the world how one's present engagement can lead one to the path of spiritual emancipation. The physician directs the patient to take treated milk in the form of curd for his sufferings from indigestion due to his taking another milk preparation. So the cause of the disease and the remedy of the disease may be the same, but it must be treated by an expert physician like Narada. The Bhagavad Gita also gives the same solution of serving the Lord by the fruits of one's labor. That will lead one to the path of Naishkarmya, or liberation. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasandubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. In the millennium of the Rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Deva Rishi Narada, who is a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action. Hare Krishna. Just give me a moment. It has been a while since I gave a Bhagavatam lecture, so I'm a little bit rusted. Forgive me. So I wanted to focus on the two aspects of this verse. One is Narada Muni, the Deva Rishi, or the sage amongst the demigods, who is a Shakyavesh avatar. Now here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this chapter, the previous verse speaks about Varahadev as a boy incarnation, and now it speaks about Narada being an avatar of the Lord. But simultaneously, it is known by Narada himself. He explains that in his previous life, for example, he was the son of a maidservant, and due to his merit of serving saintly persons, he got this exalted position of Narada Muni, who can travel anywhere he wants. And a Shakyavesh avatar is a Jiva Tattva, like us, but empowered by the Supreme Lord. Like Srila Prabhupada is also considered a Shakyavesh avatar, and Srila Prabhupada himself considered, for example, Jesus Christ a Shakyavesh avatar. So a Shakyavesh avatar is a living being that becomes empowered by the Lord's potency to do the work of the Lord in this world. And Narada Muni, he is our supreme spiritual master, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is our spiritual master, and the Srimad Bhagavatam has been compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, who is a disciple of Narada Muni. And in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that after compiling the whole Vedic literature, Srila Vyasadeva, he was still depressed. He wrote the Vedas in order to help the ignorant people of Kali Yuga to get guidance on how to achieve material happiness and also ultimately liberation. So we can see that the Vedas are having four main aspects, which is karma, dharma, artha, and moksha. So karma referring to sense enjoyment, dharma referring to religiosity, artha referring to economic development, and moksha referring to liberation. And Srila Vyasadeva was not satisfied even after compiling the Vedas. It's also interesting to note that the Vedas were not written before the age of Kali because the memories of the people in the previous age was so sharp that whenever they heard something once, they would remember it. So unlike today, where our memory is very bad and we may not even remember what we had yesterday for breakfast, the people of previous ages, they only had to hear from the spiritual master once to be able to remember the Vedas. So therefore, the Vedas already existed before they were written down, but there was no need to write them down because memory was good. And there were always some qualified teachers who would be aware of the Vedic knowledge. And it was also customary in that time that all the children of the various varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, would attend Gurukul. The Shudras, they would have some simple training and then be trained up in their various expertise, like Shudra is generally something which we think is something low, but actually the work of Shudras is often artistry, being able to facilitate a sense of beauty for others. So craftsmanship is artistic, and it has a certain value. It has great value actually. We need such expertise, but in general they did not require deep understanding of Vedic knowledge because their duty was to perform menial tasks. But the other varnas, in order to do what they have to do, to perform their dharma, they had to have more detailed knowledge in how to do it, because, believe it or not, being a leader is not cheap. One has to actually know what to do and how to guide people. Otherwise, it's saying that one blind person leads other blind person and they both go down the ditch and they die. So Vaishyas basically having the responsibility to feed. Sometimes we think that Vaishya means developing economics, but economics doesn't necessarily refer to making money. It refers to facilitating the needs of the society. So primarily in the Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned that the Srila Prabhupada mentions also in the purport that the Vaishya is supposed to have a desire to facilitate food grains and food production for society, and only when there is excess of this production then he can sell. Because feeding the stomach in order to maintain our life is actually more important than having artistic features or even having a house to live, which is also necessary. But having no food is equivalent to death. So therefore their position is naturally higher. Kshatriyas, being leaders, being also military men. They're not just having to know how to fight people, but actually their job is to make sure that everyone in their under their shelter is happy. So facilitating the happiness of the residents is very much the duty of a Kshatriya. And Brahmanas, of course, they are the spiritual guides of the society. They are meant to give the knowledge which is essential to human society, mainly the spiritual knowledge, that we are actually spirit soul. And the needs of the body and the soul are quite different. And so, coming to the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, or the fruitive section of the Vedas, which Narada Muni made his mission to educate the so-called karmis to gain devotional service. Now, sometimes in our Hare Krishna movement, we use the term karmi for pretty much everyone who lives outside and does some work and wants to enjoy the fruits of the work, but the term karmi actually refers to persons following Vedic injunctions, meaning following the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. So those who don't do that, they are actually not karmis, because the term karmi is reserved for a pious person. An example of a karmi in the Vedas or in the Bhagavatam, specifically for example, is Daksha. Daksha was a great karmi. He was a Prajapati. He was the head Prajapati, actually. And one of the main symptoms of a karmi is excessive pride in one's education and birth. So Daksha was very proud of his education and birth, and therefore he was not able to appreciate a Vaishnava who's actually in a superior position, because Vaishnavism is not dependent on one's birth, but on one's devotion to the Supreme Lord. So there are fundamental flaws with fruitive work. Generally, people in this age, they don't believe in karma at all anymore. They don't believe in the next life. And explaining karma is, I find, very essential in understanding why God acts the way he does in this world, why he seems to neglect this creation, or rather why good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. And this is explained as when an action is performed, good or bad, it plants a seed. And a seed does not produce fruits immediately, but only due course of time it grows into a tree and it produces fruits eventually. And these fruits are either bitter or sweet. So karma is not very reliable in a sense. It is reliable because it acts, but we don't remember what we have done in our previous lives, good or bad. So we never know when the fruit of our previous action may take place. And in Bhagavad Gita, this is where I want to read from the first, or the second and the third chapter, because Krishna extensively speaks about fruitive activity to Arjuna. And it starts with verse 39 in chapter 2. Thus far I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga, whereby one works without fruitive result. O son of Pritha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So, when Krishna speaks Bhagavad, I remember the first time I read Bhagavad Gita, I did not understand the context of the scripture at all. I did not know what is fruitive work. I didn't know like karma, you have some sort of idea. It's something that recently in the West has gotten more and more roots in understanding that, well, you get what you deserve. And people speaking about instant karma, for example, when they do something naughty and then suddenly they get a smack in the face, something like that. But that's not actually how karma works, because of course there are immediate reactions to our activities, but there are also long-term reaction to our activities. And these can be, to understand karma, one needs to understand how the Lord sees, not how we see. We need to understand how the Lord, or actually how the material nature, which works under the direction of the Lord, sees good and bad. An example for that is given in the Mahabharata with Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, who is actually also the first person mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, he had 100 sons, and all of them were killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. He was born blind also. At some point, he was asking Krishna himself, how did it happen that he had to suffer so much? And Shri Krishna said that 50 lifetimes ago you were a hunter, and you were burning the nest of a bird which had 100 eggs. All these eggs were destroyed, and the bird which flew out from the nest to save himself, he shot an arrow in his eye, so the bird became blind. So, and Krishna therefore said, that's why now you have been born blind and you lost your 100 sons. And Dhritarashtra, being confused, asked, how is it that it took 50 lifetimes for this to come to happen? And Krishna replied that it took you 50 lifetimes to acquire enough piety to get 100 sons. So karma does not distinguish between species, first of all. Vaishnava is very aware of the suffering that he inflicts upon others, and karma does not distinguish between, oh, this is a human being, therefore he is more important than even an insect. Srila Prabhupada also mentions this. God does not even tolerate that we kill insects without, like, yeah, there's always some karmic reaction. So I had a little personal, like, not experience, but more like observation. When I was in Radhadesh, there was one devotee who was a little bit of a grumpy man, let's say like that. And one morning I saw how with a broom he destroyed the nest of a bird, of some birds which were situated on the roof of Radhadesh temple. There's many birds in Radhadesh, and they are like residents. But he was annoyed from their when in the morning they would disturb his japa by their noise. So he decided it's the best idea to destroy that nest completely. And I was very, very upset seeing that. I didn't confront him because he was senior to me, but I was thinking that this cannot be appropriate, this cannot be proper. And a few months later, he got kicked out from the temple for his misbehavior. And I was thinking that was some reaction. He destroyed someone's home, so he got kicked out from his home also. So karma does not discriminate in this sense. It's good to be aware of that. So in one sense, knowing the art of fruitive work means to know the art of being happy in this material world. But Krishna, he's desiring to sharpen our intellect. And when he speaks about what is true knowledge, he says that the characteristic of true knowledge manifesting means to perceive the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease. That one becomes aware that no matter how of a happy situation I have right now, it will turn bitter. Because of the temporary nature of this material world, all planets, from the lowest to the highest, are ultimately places of suffering. Therefore, Krishna says, one who attains my abode, he never has to take birth again. Now, sometimes devotees reject fruitive action completely, which is if you are actually detached, really detached, not superficially, artificially detached, the best is to give up fruitive work completely. However, the Vedas have been compiled to gradually elevate those situated in a particular mode of nature to a higher consciousness. So Krishna says that in verse 46, all purposes that are served by a small pond can at once be served by the great reservoir of water. Similarly, all purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So if you understand the purpose of why karma kanda is encouraged in the Vedas, it's because the conditioned soul is covered by avidya, which means ignorance. So not knowing what is there for their own well-being, the Vedas generally encourage pious acts because they do good, and they will receive a good result from that. So in this way, instead, because we have to act, we cannot stop acting even one moment. Krishna also says this in Bhagavad Gita. Not even for a moment we can refrain from doing something. Therefore, it is better to encourage positive work than leaving people to what they are doing. And for devotees, this is also important to acknowledge when someone comes to Krishna consciousness and is interested. He may not be able to immediately understand the higher purpose of Krishna consciousness, the higher understanding of becoming free from the selfish desire to enjoy the fruits of one's action. Therefore, Krishna says that it is better to not discourage someone from acting, but to direct him to act in the devotional spirit. So in this way, from the karmi is elevated from a position of karma kanda to naishkarmya bhakti, which is meaning working without fruitive intents and offering some of the fruits of one's labor to Krishna. And sometimes we tend to neglect ordinary good things like giving charity or doing certain austerities because we consider them to be karma. Krishna, however, says that as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, similarly the learned may also act but without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. So the direction of the Vedas is for all people in all types of consciousness, especially the Puranas. There are Puranas which are for those in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of passion, in the mode of goodness. And generally, one is advised, if he's associated with certain mode of material nature, to read the Puranas in correspondence with one's material nature. So I've done some research in the course of my time Krishna consciousness, reading other Puranas. Of course, the Bhagavad Purana is the spotless Purana. That means the Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant to become free from the reactions of fruitive work. However, someone who is very determined to enjoy this material world, he cannot be persuaded with good instructions to let go of his path. So for him to make advancement, he should actually here the Puranas, which correspond with this material nature. And it's interesting. I have read, for example, the Skanda Purana, which is a Purana which is considered to be in a mode of ignorance. And this one is very interesting because you get to know the reactions of all the types of sinful activities that you do when doing these activities. So when reading this Purana, you basically start to understand what consequences your actions have. And even devotee can perform devotional service in the mode of ignorance. And in the Skanda Purana is mentioned that those that desire to kill their enemies, they worship God in order to kill their enemies. These are devotees worshipping God in ignorance. So because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is fulfilling the desires of everyone. That is his nature. Just that in the material world, this is being done through the means of karma. But if one approaches the Supreme Lord directly and asks him to conquer or to kill his enemies, the Lord does still fulfill such desire, but he's not pleased by this desire. So, what is, for example, devotional service in the mode of passion is when one desires elevation to the heavenly planets, or when one desires to conquer his enemies, so subdue them, like, for example, the kings of the past. When there was a king leading the whole earth, they would send out their armies, or like in the case of Lord Ramachandra, he sent a white horse which traveled over the earth, and anyone who would challenge Ram's authority, he would be challenged to a fight. So Ram's brother Shatrugna, he actually was charged with this task to go out in the world and see if there's anyone who does not accept Ram as supreme king. So, of course, in the case of Lord Ram, that's not under the modes of material nature, but it is actually very good if the earth is ruled by a saintly king. Because if you are like Srila Prabhupada used to call democracy demon crazy. The problem is with giving everyone equal right to speak and to make decisions. The tendency of the common man is to think selfishly. The tendency of a common man is to think in terms of I, me, and mine, and whatever benefits our present condition, which in most cases means economics. And we can see in today's world that the government, based on democracy of unqualified individuals, there's nothing proper that gets done. There's always opposition, there's always arguments, there are always fights. Most of the time, and this is something that I can personally observe very great in the German government, you can see that people in the same political party debate for a certain result that they want to achieve, and then 4 years later, when the opposition has the same idea, just to counteract, just to be different, or to have a reason to fight, to be unique, to get voted, they say something else. They change their perspective. And even the one of the main founders of democracy, Socrates, he said he was not very convinced about letting the common man vote, because common men, they don't know what's good for them. They don't see long-term value. Also, a saintly king actually enforces certain austerities upon his people. For example, fasting on Ekadashi. And one Purpose Prabhupada writes that if the whole world would decide to fast just on these 2 days in a month on Ekadashi, the burden of the earth automatically would become less, because eating, the very process of maintaining our life in this world, causes suffering to others. Even the Shastra says, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. One living being is food for another. And this is something that the materialists also very nicely observe, just that their conclusion is, well, that's how it is. We have to kill to maintain our life, and we don't say something else. We also have to kill to survive. Just the amount of suffering which is necessary for survival, a human being has the intelligence to question what is the suffering which is actually needed and what can be avoided. Most of the time our desires are for fruitive gains, so we tend to take more than is required. And as soon as we take more than is required, we commit sinful deeds. So this is a seed that is planted, and in due course of time will bring the fruit of bitter fruit of suffering. So there's one nice verse in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna directly says to Arjuna, fight for me, surrender all your works unto me, with mind intent on me and without desires for gain, free from egoism and lethargy. Fight. Lethargy is something Krishna mentions to Arjuna here in regards to neglecting his duty as a Kshatriya. He's meant to protect Dharma. Understanding the conflict of the Kurukshetra war, why does God encourage something like war? It seems to be completely off, something that a peaceful person would never want. But the thing is that you can be peaceful and seek peaceful solutions with peaceful persons, but you cannot feed milk to a serpent. The serpent will not appreciate the offering of milk. It will remain in his envious mood. So sometimes people who criticize Krishna for encouraging Arjuna to fight, they don't see the whole conflict of the Kurukshetra war. That's why reading Bhagavad Gita, like I did for the first time, not understanding the context, can cause great confusion. And Duryodhana tried in many ways to kill the Pandavas, many times. He tried to poison Bhima with a cake, a poison cake. It's like so envious, so degraded. They knew they couldn't fight Bhima 1-to-1, so they tried to poison him. They tried to Duryodhana. He built a whole house, which was actually described in Mahabharata. It was aesthetically amazing. It was really amazing. But he sent the Pandavas on holidays. So and Yudhishthira, he was just they were actually all the Pandavas. They were all very surprised. Oh, this is a very beautiful house, And they realized, well, it's all of wood. It's all flammable material. This is very strange, Everything in that house. It was flammable, and Vidura, he actually knew about the plan of Duryodhana, so he gave a little hint. But Duryodhana also had his spies, so he spoke to Yudhishthira in a way that only Yudhishthira could understand what Duryodhana was planning. So they stayed there, I think, for a week or so, and during that time they secretly were digging a tunnel. So when the house was set on fire, they could escape through the tunnel. So poisoning, burning, he tried various other ways to kill them. He tried to exile them, and he sent Gandharvas in their direction to fight and kill them. So and even in Shastra is said that a person who attacks with deadly weapons, who tries to poison or to kidnap one's wife or to burn one's house, he can be killed without sinful reaction. So, and the Pandavas, they tolerated all these insults, all these attempts of Duryodhana to kill them, and even up to the stage that they went to Duryodhan after their banishment and simply asked for 5 villages to rule of. And even that Duryodhan refused. And if you actually understand what is violence, violence does not just mean physical harm, but to deny someone's nature. To deny someone's nature is violence. And the Pandavas, as Kshatriyas, their nature is to rule, so they have to rule of something. Otherwise they experience great suffering. And even that they were denied. It's also like something that sometimes, the things or the restrictions that count for us, they don't count for other living beings. Like, for example, no eating meat. You cannot teach a cat to be a vegetarian. It will die. It will be malnourished. It will get sick and diseased. And I've seen that sometimes devotees have tried this to make a cat vegetarian, and it wouldn't really work out. So this is also some type of violence, to deny someone's nature. But the human being, they have the power to acquire a divine nature. And similarly, they also have the ability to acquire demonic nature. And Krishna says this is like the wind catching one breeze from one place, it carries it to another place. Similarly, by our association, for many lifetimes, the jiva develops a certain mentality. And the mentality is very strong. It's very much ingrained in our... It actually, we can see that this mentality, when someone takes birth, there is still something left from that mentality of previous lives. That's why we can see some people, they get born and they turn up to be immediately criminal, and they start to murder and rape and, do whatever aroma they have acquired in a previous life that carries on to the next body. And that's why, unless someone gets some type of saintly association, he has no opportunity to rectify himself. Because in this world does not teach us to be good. This world does not teach us to be selfless. This world teaches us to dominate, to exploit, to prevail by strength. So this is the type of aroma that we have been associating for many, many years, many lifetimes. And to break out of that, it requires saintly association. Like when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he convinced his followers not mainly by philosophy, but by his personal conduct, how he treated other devotees, how he treated other living beings, that revolutionary spirit of being a saintly influence of others, that gives us the opportunity to reflect that what this world has taught us is mostly, we can also learn good things, of course, but mainly we learn how to conquer and prevail in this world. We can get rid of it by a different association. So, actually, there are 4 types of evidence by which one can understand the nature of this world. This is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto. This is in a conversation that Krishna has with Uddhava. So, Vedic knowledge, direct experience, traditional wisdom, and logical induction. These are the 4 types of evidence by which one can understand the nature of this world. And when one understands the nature of this world, one can also understand the nature of the spiritual world. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana, he has written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, the Gita Bhushana. And he writes that detachment, if it is to be mature, one needs to understand both matter and spirit. One cannot just understand the spiritual nature and neglect the material understanding, because detachment based on being disgusted by sense enjoyment is maybe a beginning. One experiences the bitter fruits of sense enjoyment, the suffering it inflicts upon one, and then one becomes very bitter. And this bitterness may lead one to temporarily renounce the material world, but that renunciation will not be mature. So Bhagavad Gita Bhushana says that in order to be mature in one's detachment, one also needs to understand the nature of matter and spirit, the difference between them. And Krishna also says that even though restraining from sense enjoyment, one's attachment or one's contemplation remains, and actually Krishna says that someone who externally renounces the objects of senses but internally meditates on them, he's called a pretender. He's called pretentious. And this is called Falgu Vairagya, false renunciation. We look for Yukta Vairagya, which means that we can, instead of abandoning this world completely, we see that this world is actually a manifestation of the Supreme Lord and meant to be used to engage in His service. So in this way we can develop a proper understanding of how everything is related to the Lord, instead of becoming engulfed in feelings of love and hatred. If we have particular love for material objects, that will drag us to be attached to that object, which will cultivate into another material body. While being hateful of particular thing, that will actually see it's also a symptom of attachment. Basically a symptom of what I hate, what I don't like is not doing what I want to do, so therefore I don't like it. I reject it. So in the Ishopanishad it confirms this. I forgot the exact verse, but it's the verse mentions that one needs to learn the process of knowledge and nescience side by side in order to develop transcendental understanding. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam we also find, for example, the Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni was the father of Kapila Dev and the husband of Devahuti. So when he approached the Supreme Lord, he actually had a desire for a fruitive result. He wanted to get married and have a good wife and enjoy a sex life. So, and it is a symptom of the Supreme Lord to fulfill the desires that is within our heart when we worship Him. Therefore, when Kardama Muni got the darshan of Vishnu, even though when he got the darshan, it was a similar situation that Dhruva Maharaj had. When he got the darshan, he suddenly realized that his desire was very meager and he could have asked something much better from the Lord. But nonetheless, the Lord fulfilled that desire anyway. And Kardama's detachment did not come from Falgu Vairagya. He actually, if you read that particular part in the third canto, they enjoyed a lot of sex life, Devahuti and Kardama Muni. He created, by his mystic power, a flying palace, which with dozens of bedrooms and gardens, everything for nice enjoyment. But after he told to Devahuti in the beginning that he will leave her once the child is grown up, so once the children are grown up, and he did that. So that's also something devotees should come to understand, that being afraid of sense enjoyment, mainly, I think my experience, at least with ISKCON, is that there's some social obligation, some pressure that comes from accepting renunciation within our movement, and that will not be very helpful in the long term, because the renunciation of the Vaishnavas is internal, not external. like Prabhupada wrote in one letter, that the Goswamis, they were constantly seeing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and engaged in the loving service of them. So externally they appeared very renounced, but internally they were enjoying great bliss. And because the Jiva is Anandamoy Vyasat, by nature pleasure seeking, it cannot refrain from seeking enjoyment. So there are three types of sources of enjoyment according to the nectar of devotion, and the lowest is sense enjoyment. Then there's the enjoyment of the Brahman, or of the impersonal feature of the Lord, and then the most superior enjoyment is actually the enjoyment of devotional service. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, becoming fixed in one's determination by experiencing a higher taste. One actually is fixed in this renunciation. So without the higher taste, one cannot renounce fruitive acts, because, of course, that would first of all require us to believe in karma, that good results come from performing good acts. But then even giving up that requires a greater insight of what is spiritual life, what does it actually mean. One last thing which I would like to mention, which is something of my personal experience, that doing good doesn't mean you are good. If you do good because you are promised some higher reward, it doesn't mean you're good. So Krishna does not, of course Krishna says that one who does good, even if he is doing it is far superior to someone who does not do that. However, Krishna does not enjoy anything material. Actually, in Bhagavad Gita it says this material energy, he has separated himself. He has separated the material energy from his superior energy for the purpose of, he's not enjoying that. He's not enjoying the mentality of fruitive gain. It disturbs Krishna's rasa, it disturbs Krishna's loving exchanges, which are based on selflessness, on simply the desire to please the beloved. That is Krishna's standard for his transcendental pastimes. And I'm a little bit in Maya myself, or not in Maya, how you see it. So I am very attached to playing video games. And in this type of industry now, it has become very common that there's a high desire for fruitive gain, so that it must make a lot of money, otherwise you cannot produce it. It's not worth it. It's similar with movie industry. And there have been a couple of games in the past that I've been played which actually contain a lot of Vedic knowledge. The West starts to catch up with the understanding that the Vedas, they have vast treasure of knowledge, and every good idea you have in movies and games nowadays, they probably originate from the Vedas. And you could see that there was one game which was celebrated recently, where you could see that the developers, they didn't care for the budget or what the game would bring, but they simply had the intention to please the gamers by their experience. So what fun, what enjoyment they would have playing the game. And as a result, the game turned extremely well and everyone loved it. Because the mentality while developing it was already a non-fruitive one, comparatively. It was meant for the pleasure of someone else. So similarly, Krishna is pleased if we develop this, if we cultivate this intention to do something for the sake of pleasing the Lord, for doing something for the sake of doing something good. Then it becomes good. And actually Krishna himself acts in this way, giving an example. He actually also says in Bhagavad Gita, if I would not do my work as prescribed in the Vedas, everyone would follow my path, because he's the Lord of everyone, he's the leader of everyone. Whatever action a great man does, common men, they pursue, they follow. So Krishna explains this, that if I wouldn't do my work as if I am obliged, even though he is not obliged, everyone would follow his path. So it requires trust in God that my actions will not go in vain. Performing activities without the intention to gain a fruitful result will not lead me to a worse position. It will lead me to a better position. Krishna is already on the standard of understanding. Krishna is already good. Krishna already facilitates everyone. Krishna already provides for everyone without asking anything in return. So when we train to develop the same mentality, it's actually us getting to Krishna's level. Not that the Lord himself has a desire to exploit the living being, cultivating this desire. And once we actually, and this is why Narada Muni has written the Narada Pancharatra, that gives the information how to turn this fruitive mentality into devotional service. So as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the same activity that, or the same thing that caused disease, when applied by an expert physician, would treat the disease. So an expert knower of the Vedas, an expert devotee of the Lord, he knows exactly how to engage one's particular nature in the Lord's service, so he becomes purified. And Krishna also says that these activities of charity, of sacrifices, of austerities, of penances, they are never to be given up because they even purify the great souls. So we can understand that Prabhupada was a great proponent of this philosophy. Everything can be used in Krishna's service. Everything can be utilized for purifying our existence. So with this, I would like to ask if there's any questions or comments. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, thank you. So much information there. But I heard you say something, and I couldn't remember exactly what you said at the end of the sentence. I know that I wanted to ask you to give one or two examples, simple things. We have to watch our time because breakfast starts at 8:45 actually.
Oh, sorry.
So, no, it doesn't matter, you don't know. So you said something a bit earlier, don't discourage someone to act, but encourage them. And you said something else after that? I'm not exactly sure.
To act in devotion. That's actually what Krishna, let me see if I can find. You can continue, I'll look for the verse.
That was it. Don't discourage someone to act, but encourage them to something or other. And I wanted to ask if you have an example.
Actually, for example, I'm a baker, right? I've been engaged in that occupation before I came to Krishna consciousness, and now I have remained. My skill has remained. So I can directly engage this work in Krishna's service by cooking something for his pleasure. Similarly, any type of occupation really can be used to in devotional service by doing it for those who are engaged in devotional service. For example, doing service for those engaged in devotional service. I had this conversation with my own father, who is not a devotee, but I think he's quite a pious person for this age. So, and he has very much a Shudra mentality, that working hard and earning the fruits of labor for the family and so on. And I think most practical for him, I told him, is that why don't you give some of your earnings for the Lord's cause? Krishna says in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you are, you should always think of me, and if you cannot do that, you should perform regulated devotional service. If you cannot do that, you should work for me. If you cannot do that, you should offer the fruits of your work for me. If you cannot do that, you should cultivate knowledge. So Krishna gives that superior to giving one's fruits of work, because this is something very simple everyone can do. Everyone earns a little money with his activity, anyone can give some fruit of that. So, but superior to that is with one's skills and talents to use that for the Lord.
How does that kind of relate to not discouraging someone to act, but encouraging them to?
You know this pastime of Narada Muni actually persuading the sons of Daksha to take renunciation and completely go for liberation. Daksha actually used this argument that Krishna is using also in Bhagavad Gita, and I myself was using. No, they should first, they're young, they need to help me populate the universe. Daksha was also engaged in his duty actually as a Prajapati, so he was doing his dharma, and in his view Narada Muni has stopped him, so has put stumbling blocks, stones on this path, and he also cursed Narada Muni for that because he didn't understand. So generally we know with the Varnashram system, right? We go through a certain stage in our life. Those who are not inclined to give up materialistic work, if we confront them and tell them, no, what you're doing is nonsense, don't do it, that will create disturbance in his mind. He will not be able to understand. Like in the case of Daksha, he will maybe even curse us.
So that would be discouragement, basically.
That would be, yes. So like stop doing your nonsense, go to the temple, renounce, like the devotees used to do in the earlier beginnings. It was successful to some extent, but at some point it dropped.
So opposed to that, the encouragement would be?
To engage them on the level. So usually I would say in a personal conversation with a person, you will find out where they are standing. If you are, for some time you engaged with them and you see how they react to certain statements you make, how they what is their perception. And for example, someone who doesn't want to stop his work in the material world outside, which instead of the superior would be, come to us, engage your skills for the Lord. And I think your temple president would be the right man to see what is this person's talent, how to engage him. That would be superior to letting someone live outside and give some of his fruits. But someone who's not even inclined to give some of his fruits, it would be better to preach to him knowledge. Because by cultivation of knowledge, one develops the understanding that giving up fruits of one's work is beneficial. So that's the 12th chapter. Into the 12th chapter, Krishna explains these different stages of how one can approach him according to one's level. So for us as devotees, as preachers, our mission is to understand which platform the person is on and facilitate him accordingly.
So taking that down in a slightly more simpler way, if someone really hates doing some kind of service or part of service, and you start chastising them instead of because they're not doing it properly, wouldn't it be better then to tell them what they are doing very well, and that would be more encouraging? Is that taking it down on a more simple level, or is that not the same kind of thing?
I think with chastisement is actually Lord Shiva says in the Shri Sahasrara Tantra that there are only 4 types of men who are eligible to chastise someone. One is a father to his son, one is a guru to his disciple, one is a teacher to his disciple, and another is a husband to his wife. So if you are not following on that, chastising someone is generally never a good idea. But on the practical level, if someone is not desire, I think you have to differentiate between, is this person not desiring to do the service, or does he not have the expertise to do it? Because if he has not the expertise, but the sincerity is there, Krishna can empower him. So it would be, my opinion would be, it would be more appropriate to try to help him to gain this expertise with patience and perseverance, seeing if he's willing to step up and to cultivate. While if he's not desiring it, well, the service is not for you. What is the use if he's not desiring it? That's not devotional service should be done voluntarily, not pushed, because the distaste one cultivates, especially over the years. We've seen this with many members in ISKCON who have been pushed over the years to do things they did not want to do for a long period of time. They become so disgusted, they completely remove themselves from the society. And this cannot be what Krishna wants. Is it somewhat? Yeah, maybe it's not exactly what you're looking for.
No, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, instead of telling someone how bad something has been done, you can tell them, look at the things they have done well, and emphasize that, I think.
That's all, but there's one verse...
and show by example. Also.
Of course, yeah. So there's one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, again, Uddhava Gita, where Krishna says one should not particularly praise or criticize one's material qualities, because this praise and criticism infatuates one's identification with material body and material skills. So even though devotees generally prefer to praise someone, if we praise someone for one's material skills or abilities, that's not really helping.
Or you can show gratefulness as well.
Of course, yeah. That's nice, yeah. Encourage it. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.